The massive alien ship moved through the darkness of space like a ghost made of crystal and light. Its hull sparkled with strange colors as it caught the rays from the distant yellow sun. Inside the ship, Admiral Velthor stood tall on the command bridge, his 4 dark eyes looking at the glowing screens that showed him everything about the small blue planet ahead. The ship was called Starweaver, and it belonged to the Zephyrian Confederation. This was a group of 12 different alien races who had joined together to explore the galaxy and bring other worlds under their control. They had powerful weapons, ships that could travel faster than light, and technology that seemed like magic. To most civilizations, they met. "What do the sensors tell us about this planet?" Admiral Velthor asked his science officer, a thin creature with purple skin and large hands. "The energy readings show they have basic nuclear power, sir," the officer replied, his voice making clicking sounds. "We are picking up radio signals from all over the planet. It seems like the creatures there are divided into many different groups that fight with each other." The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what they expected to find. Another young civilization that had not yet learned to work together. These humans would be easy to control and guide, just like so many other species they had encountered before, on the surface of Earth. Far below the alien ship, Dr. Jiho Kim sat in a windowless room deep underground in Geneva, Switzerland. The 50-year-old scientist pushed his glasses up his nose as he watched the large screens showing the alien vessels. Taking positions above major cities around the world, New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and dozens of other cities now had enormous alien ships hanging in their skies like dark clouds. Around the long table in the emergency meeting room, representatives from every major nation on Earth sat quietly. Their faces showed no fear or surprise, which might have seemed strange to anyone watching. After all, alien ships had just appeared above their world for the first time in human history. Commander Mina Park, at only 32 years old, was the youngest person in the room. She had short black hair and wore a dark military uniform without any visible rank insignia. Her fingers tapped silently on the polished table as she studied the alien formations on the screens. "They are following exactly the same pattern we expected," she said in a calm voice. "First, they show up everywhere at once to demonstrate their power. Then they will try to frighten us with displays of their advanced technology. After that comes the diplomatic contact where they offer to help us in exchange for our submission." Somin Lee, of the Pacific Alliance, a political organization that had formed 20 years earlier, leaned back in her chair. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "Let them go through their entire routine," she said quietly. "We will give them exactly the response they expect to receive." At that moment, all the screens in the room flickered and changed. The alien ships were sending a message to Earth. The transmission came through in dozens of human languages, though the grammar was broken and the pronunciation was strange. "People of Earth," the message began, "we are the Zephyrian Confederation. We have traveled across the galaxy and discovered your world. We see that you are a young species still learning to control your violent nature. We offer you our protection and guidance. We will share our advanced technology with you and help you join the greater galactic community. You need only accept our leadership and follow our laws." The message repeated several times in different languages, each time with the same tone of condescending kindness, like an adult speaking to a small child. Admiral Veltor watched the transmission from his command bridge, feeling pleased with himself. This was how first contact always went. The primitive species would be amazed by their technology, frightened by their power, and grateful for their offer of protection. Within a few months, Earth would become another client world in the Confederation, providing resources and following orders like all the others. Back in the underground chamber, Dr. Kim looked around the table at his colleagues. Each person there represented not just their own nation, but also secret organizations that had been working together for decades. These were not the politicians and leaders that the general public knew about. These were the real decision makers, the ones who had been preparing for this day for a very long time. "Phase 1 is complete," Dr. Kim said, using a code phrase that everyone in the room understood. "They have made their opening move exactly as our models predicted they would." The scientist had spent most of his career studying alien behavior. patterns based on intercepted communications and carefully hidden observation posts throughout the galaxy. He knew that the Zephyrians always followed the same basic approach when they encountered a new civilization. First came the show of force, then the offer of protection, then the gradual absorption into their empire. Commander Park checked her watch and made a note on a small electronic device. The response teams are ready in all major cities. Media outlets have their prepared statements. The public will see exactly what we want them to see. What the aliens did not know was that every aspect of their arrival had been anticipated and planned for. The humans they would meet, the reactions they would observe, and the negotiations they would conduct had all been carefully arranged in advance. President Lee activated a secure communication channel that connected her to similar hidden facilities around the world. Beijing Station, Moscow Station, Washington Station, report status. One by one, voices confirmed that everything was ready. The real leaders of Earth were prepared to begin the most important performance in human history. Dr. D. Kim smiled slightly as he watched the alien ships on the monitors. They think they are the hunters, he said quietly, but they do not realize they have walked into a trap that has been 40 years in the making. The aliens had superior technology, faster ships, and more powerful weapons than anything Earth appeared to possess, but they had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that humans were as primitive and isolated as they seemed to be. They had no idea that humanity had been studying them for decades, learning their weaknesses, and preparing for this exact moment. As the first day of open contact between humans and aliens began, the real game was just starting. The Zephyrians thought they were beginning the conquest of another primitive world, but they were actually walking into the most sophisticated deception in galactic history. 3 weeks had passed since the alien ships first appeared above Earth's major cities. The initial shock and fear that the media had shown to the world had given way to what appeared to be cautious diplomatic talks. Every day, human representatives met with the Zephyrian delegation in a specially constructed facility in Geneva, discussing terms for Earth's integration into their galactic confederation. Admiral Velthar walked through the corridors of the human building, his 4 eyes taking in every detail. The construction seemed primitive compared to Zephyrian architecture, with simple metal walls and basic lighting systems. Yet something about the humans themselves was beginning to disturb him in ways he could not quite explain. That morning's demonstration had been particularly troubling. The Zephyrians had brought one of their portable energy weapons to show the humans the power they would gain by joining the Confederation. The weapon could slice through solid rock or metal as easily as cutting through water. Most primitive species would gasp in amazement or tremble in fear when seeing such technology instead. Dr. Heian Choi, a middle-aged human scientist with calm brown eyes, had simply nodded and smiled politely. "Very impressive design," he had said, examining the weapon with the same interest someone might show when looking at a well-made tool. "The energy focus seems quite stable. Are you using crystalline matrices for the beam coherence?" The question had caught the alien weapons specialist off guard. Energy beam coherence was an advanced concept that most species did not understand until they had been working with energy weapons for decades. How could these humans, who supposedly had only basic nuclear technology, know such things? Later that same day, Minister Tay Park had made an even more disturbing comment. The minister was a tall woman with silver hair who always spoke in a quiet, measured voice. During a discussion about space travel, she had listened carefully as the aliens explained their faster-than-light drive system. "The quantum field manipulation is quite elegant," she had said, using technical terms that should have been completely foreign to any Earth-based civilization. "Though I wonder if you have considered the efficiency improvements possible with phase-shifted exotic matter. We have run some theoretical calculations that suggest a 17% increase in energy efficiency might be possible." Velthor's mandibles had clicked nervously. Exotic matter manipulation was one of the most advanced concepts in faster-than-light travel. Zephyrians themselves had only mastered it within the last century. No primitive species should even know that such materials existed, let alone have run calculations on their potential applications. But the most shocking moment had come during a private briefing with Defense Minister Jin Seo. The minister was a serious man in his 40s who rarely spoke during the larger meetings. He had requested a private session to discuss what he called technical compatibility issues between human and alien systems. Your ship's power signature suggests you are using trilithium crystals for energy storage, Minister Jin had said in a casual tone, as if discussing the weather. We have observed similar configurations in the Andromeda spiral. It's quite effective for vessels of your size. Though I imagine the crystal degradation becomes a problem after extended deep space missions. The room had fallen completely silent. Admiral Velthar felt his breathing apparatus working harder as the implications of what he had just heard began to sink in. Trilithium crystals were not just advanced technology. They were extremely rare materials that could only be found in specific types of star systems. More importantly, they were only used by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. But the human had also mentioned the Andromeda spiral. That was another galaxy entirely, millions of light years away from Earth. Even the Zephyrian Confederation had only recently begun to explore that distant region of space. How could these supposedly primitive humans know anything about energy? Configurations in Andromeda? The alien admiral had tried to maintain his composure, but his voice had betrayed his confusion. How do you know about trilithium crystals? He had asked. Minister Jin had simply smiled. We have done some research on galactic energy systems. Your technology is quite fascinating to study. That night, Admiral Velthor had retreated to his private quarters aboard the Starweaver. The ship hung in orbit high above Earth, its sensors constantly scanning the planet below. According to every instrument they possessed, Earth was exactly what it appeared to be. A world with primitive technology, divided governments, and a young civilization that had barely begun to explore space. Yet the conversations with the human representatives told a completely different story. These people spoke about advanced scientific concepts with the casual familiarity of experts who had studied such things for years. They asked questions that revealed deep understanding of technologies that should have been completely alien to them. The Admiral activated his private communication system and sent an encrypted message to the Confederation High Command on their homeworld, thousands of light years away. The message would take several days to reach its destination, but he could not wait any longer to share his growing concerns. High Command, he spoke into the recording device. I must report unusual developments in the Earth's integration process. The humans are displaying knowledge that cannot be explained by their apparent technological level. They understand concepts about energy weapons, faster than light travel, and exotic materials that should be impossible for their civilization to have discovered independently. He paused, trying to find the right words to express his growing unease. Furthermore, they have mentioned observations from the Andromeda spiral and knowledge of trilithium crystal applications that even some of our own member species do not possess. I request immediate consultation with the Strategic Assessment Division. Meanwhile, in the human facility far below, Commander Mina Park sat in a secure monitoring room, watching recordings of the day's meetings. She had been observing the aliens' reactions carefully, noting every sign of confusion, every moment of uncertainty that crossed their faces. They are beginning to suspect, she reported to her colleagues through an encrypted communication channel. The weapons demonstration caused the first real doubts. Minister Park's comments about exotic matter made them nervous. But Minister Jin's mention of trilithium crystals in Andromeda really shook them. Speakers. How long before they realized the truth? Not long, Commander Park replied. Admiral Velthar contacted their homeworld tonight. They are starting to ask the right questions. Soon they will demand answers that we cannot give without revealing everything. The careful game that humanity had been playing for 3 weeks was approaching its critical phase. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive civilization they could easily control. Instead, they were discovering that the humans they were negotiating with possessed knowledge that should have been impossible for any isolated world to obtain. The question now was whether the Zephyrians would figure out the truth before humanity was ready to reveal it, or whether Earth's strategists could continue their deception long enough to reach the next phase of their plan. The elevator descended deep into the heart of the Swiss Alps, carrying Admiral Velthor and his small delegation of advisors into what appeared to be solid rock. The human escort, a quiet woman in a simple gray uniform, said nothing during the long journey downward. The alien admiral's 4 eyes watched the numbers on the display panel climb higher and higher, indicating they were traveling much deeper than any normal building would require. When the elevator finally stopped, the doors opened to reveal a corridor that stretched far into the distance. The walls were made of some kind of smooth, dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols glowed softly along the edges of the ceiling, providing just enough illumination to see the path ahead. "This way, please," the escort said, leading them through several security checkpoints. Each checkpoint required the human woman to place her hand on a scanner that emitted a soft blue light. The aliens noticed that the scanning devices were far more advanced than anything they had seen in the surface facilities, where the negotiations had been taking place. After walking for what felt like several minutes, they arrived at a massive, circular chamber carved directly from the mountain rock. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that rose high above their heads. In the center stood a long table made of polished black stone, surrounded by chairs designed to accommodate both human and alien body types. But what caught Admiral Velthor's attention immediately were the people already seated around the table. These were not the same humans he had been negotiating with for the past 3 weeks. These individuals carried themselves differently. With a quiet confidence that spoke of real authority and power, at the head of the table sat a woman with silver hair that caught the soft lighting of the chamber. She appeared to be in her mid-60s, with intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. She wore a simple dark uniform without any visible rank insignia, yet every other human in the room clearly deferred to her presence. "Admiral Velthor," she said, rising from her chair as the aliens entered. "I am Director Unesio. Thank you for accepting our invitation to this meeting. I believe it is time we had a more honest conversation about the situation between our species." The alien admiral felt a chill run through his body. Something about this woman's tone suggested that everything he thought he knew about Earth and humanity was about to change dramatically. "Please be seated," Director Yun continued, gesturing to the chairs that had been prepared for the alien delegation. "What I am about to share with you may come as something of a shock, but I assure you that everything you hear in this room is the absolute truth." As soon as the aliens had taken their seats, the chamber around them began to transform. The walls became transparent, revealing themselves to be massive display screens. Suddenly, the room was filled with the image of star-filled space, as if they were floating in the void between galaxies. "This is our galaxy," Director Yoon said, her voice calm and measured. "What you are seeing is a real-time display of star systems, trade routes, and inhabited worlds." She gestured with her hand, and the display zoomed in on various regions of space. The red dots you see scattered throughout represent human installations and outposts. Admiral Velthor's breathing apparatus began to wheeze as he realized what he was seeing. There were thousands of red dots spread across the galaxy. They were not concentrated in one region around Earth, distributed everywhere, including in areas that the Zephyrian Confederation considered to be their own exclusive territory. "This is impossible," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our sensors would have detected human presence in our space. We have been monitoring the galaxy for centuries." Dr. Wu Jinnam, a man in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes, leaned forward from his position at the table. "Admiral, we have been studying your species for 47 years. Our research station in the Rigel system has been intercepting and analyzing Zephyrian communications since your 3rd expansion war. We know about your military capabilities, your political structure, your economic systems, and your plans for galactic expansion." The alien admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "The Rigel system is deep within Confederation space. If you had a station there, our patrols would have found it decades ago, would they?" asked Captain Dan B. Ko, a young woman who appeared to be in her early 30s. Despite her youth, she spoke with the authority of someone who had seen combat in ways the aliens could not imagine.
Ow.
"Your sensors are designed to detect technology, similar to your own. They look for energy signatures, radio transmissions, and material compositions that match known patterns." She stood up and walked to the center of the room, where the holographic display showed a detailed view of the Rigel system. Station Theta 7 has been operating continuously for nearly 5 decades. It is staffed by a crew of 200 humans who monitor every communication, every ship movement, and every technological development in that sector of space. Admiral Velthor felt his world beginning to crumble around him. But our security, protocols, our encryption systems, are based on mathematical principles that we helped your scientists develop, Captain Ko said with a slight smile. Lieutenant Commander Yunwoo has been living on your homeworld for 6 years, Admiral. He works in your Central Research Institute under the identity of Dr. Zeph Kalar, one of your most respected theoretical physicists. The alien admiral's 4 eyes widened in horror. Dr. Zeph Kalar had been responsible for several major breakthroughs in Zephyrian technology over the past few years. The improvements to their faster-than-light drives, the advances in energy weapon efficiency, and the development of their new sensor arrays had all come from his research. You are telling me that one of our leading scientists is actually a human? Spy? Admiral Velthor asked, his voice shaking with disbelief. Not a spy, corrected Dr. Nam gently. A researcher. Commander Yunwoo has been studying how your species develops technology and sharing insights that would help your civilization advance in positive directions. We have similar researchers embedded with every major galactic civilization. Yun stood up and walked to where the holographic display showed the location of Earth. What you must understand, Admiral, is that Earth was never the isolated, primitive world you believed it to be. That was simply the image we chose to project while we conducted our research. The display zoomed in on the solar system, showing not just Earth, but dozens of massive installations throughout the system. Space stations, manufacturing facilities, defensive platforms, and ships that dwarfed anything in the Zephyrian fleet hung in the void around the small blue planet. We have been present throughout the galaxy for over a century, Director Yun continued. We have studied every major civilization, every political system, every technological development, and every conflict that has shaped galactic history. You are not discovering Earth, Admiral. We're revealing ourselves to you. The alien delegation sat in stunned silence as the full scope of human deception became clear. They had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive world they could easily control and integrate into their confederation. Instead, they had discovered that they were the ones being studied, manipulated, and controlled by a civilization so advanced that it had remained completely hidden from them for decades. Admiral Velthor realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy, about his own species' place in it, and about the balance of power among the stars was completely wrong. The humans had not just been watching the Zephyrian Confederation. They had been guiding its development from the shadows for nearly half a century. Director Yoon Seo reached across her desk and touched a small silver button that seemed no different from any other control panel switch. The moment her finger made contact, the entire chamber filled with a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. What you are about to witness, she said calmly, is the true face of humanity. Above them, displayed on the massive screens that surrounded the chamber, the image of Earth began to change. What had appeared to be a normal planet with continents, oceans, and scattered cities suddenly transformed into something completely different. Admiral Velthor watched in growing amazement as enormous structures began rising from what had seemed to be empty grasslands and deserts. These were not small buildings or towns, but massive cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Towers of gleaming metal and crystal reached toward the sky, some so tall they seemed to pierce the clouds themselves. Australian complex houses, 47 million people. Director Yoon explained as the display focused on one particularly impressive city. It has been operating continuously for 63 years. Your orbital surveys cataloged the area as uninhabited wilderness. The view shifted to show the Sahara Desert, where another enormous city was emerging from beneath what had appeared to be nothing but sand dunes. Buildings that looked like they were made from living light rose from the ground, their surfaces shifting and changing colors as they grew taller. The Sahara installation contains our primary research facilities for advanced physics and dimensional engineering, added Dr. Woojin Nam. Over 200,000 of our best scientists work there on projects that would revolutionize galactic civilization. But the most shocking sight came when the display showed the Earth's oceans. The Pacific Ocean, which had seemed like normal water from space, suddenly became transparent. Beneath the waves, massive underwater cities sprawled across the ocean floor. These were not small research stations or military outposts, but enormous metropolitan areas that housed millions of people. We have found that underwater construction allows for larger population centers without disrupting the surface environment, explained engineer Hyok Jang, a man in his 40s with short black hair and intense eyes. Alone contain over 3 billion residents. Admiral Velthor felt his legs becoming weak. His species had been observing Earth for months before making contact, and their sensors had detected none of this. According to every instrument the Zephyrians possessed, Earth had a population of roughly 8 billion humans living in relatively primitive cities on the surface. How is this possible? He managed to ask. Our sensors are the most advanced. In the galaxy, we can detect a single person from orbit. Ack! Engineer Jang smiled slightly. Your sensors detect what exists in normal space-time. We have been using dimensional phase-shifting technology for over a century. Our cities and installations exist in a slightly different dimensional frequency than the rest of the universe. The alien admiral's breathing apparatus wheezed as he tried to process this information. You mean your cities exist in another dimension? Not another dimension exactly, Dr. Kyung-woo corrected. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver streaks in her dark hair and the patient manner of someone who had spent decades explaining complex concepts. Think of it as existing in the spaces between normal reality. Your species perceives the universe within a specific range of dimensional frequencies. We simply built our civilization slightly outside that range. The demonstration was far from over. The view shifted to show the space around Earth, where objects the Zephyrians had carefully catalogued as asteroids in space. Debris suddenly revealed their true nature. What had appeared to be a large asteroid near the moon suddenly unfolded, like a flower, revealing itself to be a massive space station, with docking bays large enough to hold entire fleets. Battle Station Omega has been operational for 42 years, Director Yoon said matter-of-factly. Your scouts passed within 50 kilometers of it last month during their preliminary survey. They catalogued it as a Class 7 asteroid composed primarily of iron and nickel. Throughout the solar system, similar transformations were taking place. Chunks of space rock became enormous manufacturing facilities. What had seemed like empty space filled with ships that were larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Some of these vessels were so massive that they could have easily carried entire cities within their hulls. Admiral Velthor watched his own tactical displays, which were connected to the sensors on the Starweaver high above. The screens were going completely haywire, showing thousands of new contacts appearing throughout the star system. Ships, stations, and installations that had been completely invisible moments before now filled the displays with so many contacts that the system could barely process them all. How many ships do you have? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. In this system alone? Approximately 12,000 vessels of various sizes, replied Captain Dan BKO. Across the galaxy, we maintain a fleet of roughly 8,000 ships, though most of them are used for research and exploration rather than military purposes. The alien admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly. The entire Zephyrian Confederation had fewer than 10,000 ships. One had considered themselves to be the most powerful military force in the galaxy. But the numbers of your people, he said, grasping for something that might make sense. Your population cannot possibly support such a massive fleet. Dr. Kyung-woo consulted a small device in her hand. Currently, the human population across the galaxy is approximately 400 billion individuals. We have been growing slowly and sustainably for over 2 centuries, establishing colonies and research stations throughout inhabited space. Admiral Velthar felt the chamber spinning around him. 400 billion humans scattered across the galaxy, all living in hidden cities and installations that no other species had ever detected. The implications were staggering. Your expansion, he said weakly. How did you spread so far without anyone noticing? We learned early in our development that rapid aggressive expansion leads to conflict, Director Yoon explained. Instead, we chose a more patient approach. We established small research outposts, studied local conditions, and slowly built sustainable communities. Most importantly, we made sure never to compete directly with existing civilizations for resources or territory. The demonstration continued as the displays showed increasingly advanced technology. Weapon systems that could apparently disrupt the fabric of space itself. Manufacturing facilities that could construct entire fleets within hours using some kind of matter conversion process. Scientific installations that seemed to treat the basic laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Energy to matter conversion has been standard technology for us for over 80 years, engineer Zhang explained as they watched a manufacturing facility create a fully functional starship in what appeared to be minutes. We can convert stellar energy directly into any form of matter we need. This eliminates the need to strip mine planets or compete for limited resources. Admiral Velthair realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was completely wrong. The Zephyrian Confederation was not the advanced civilization they believed themselves to be. They were children playing with toys compared to the humans who had been watching them from the shadows for decades. Your entire civilization, Director Yoon said gently, has been developing under our guidance. We have been cultivating galactic peace through careful influence, helping species advance while preventing conflicts that might destabilize entire regions of space. The alien admiral understood now why the humans had seemed so knowledgeable about advanced technology. They had not been learning from the Zephyrians. They had been teaching them. The news spread across the galaxy like ripples in a calm pond, reaching every corner of civilized space within days. The revelation that humanity had been secretly guiding galactic development for over a century sent shockwaves through every major civilization. Some species reacted with anger at having been deceived for so long, while others felt relief that the mysterious improvements in their technology and the prevention of major wars finally made sense. Admiral Velthair found himself in a position he had never imagined possible. Instead of commanding the mighty Starweaver, as he had for the past 15 years, he now served as the official liaison between the Zephyrian Confederation and Earth. His new office was aboard a human vessel called the Harmony, a ship so massive that his former flagship could have fit inside one of its smaller cargo bays. The bridge of the Harmony was unlike anything the Admiral had ever seen. Instead of the cramped, efficient design of Zephyrian ships, this command center was spacious and filled with natural light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Plants grew in specially designed sections along the edges of the room, creating an atmosphere that felt more like a peaceful garden than a military command center. Captain Dan Biko stood at the center of the bridge, her dark hair now showing streaks of silver that had not been there during their first meeting months ago. She wore the same simple uniform as before, but now Admiral Velthair understood that her quiet authority came from commanding fleets that could reshape entire star systems if necessary. The first joint colony ship launched this morning, she reported, gesturing toward the massive viewing screen that showed a vessel unlike anything previously built. The ship was clearly a combination of human and alien technology, with the sleek lines of human engineering blended with the crystalline structures that the Zephyrians favored for their own vessels. Admiral Velthair watched the enormous ship accelerate toward the edge of the galaxy, heading for the Magellanic Clouds where humans and aliens would work together to establish the first truly integrated settlement. The vessel carried 10,000 volunteers from 12 different species, all eager to be part of this new chapter in galactic history. Your species could have conquered us all, he said quietly, his 4 eyes still fixed on the departing colony ship. With your technology and your hidden presence throughout the galaxy, you could have defeated every military force in known space without any of us ever knowing what was happening. Captain Ko turned to look at him, her expression thoughtful. Conquest was never our goal, Admiral. We wanted to understand how different species develop, how they interact with each other, and how they solve the problems that face all intelligent civilizations. We wanted to learn what happens when species are allowed to grow naturally, with just gentle guidance when they needed it most. The communication system activated, and Director Yoon Seo's voice filled the bridge. Even though she was speaking from Earth, thousands of light years away, The advanced human technology made it seem as if she were standing in the room with them. "The galaxy is entering a new phase," she said, her words carrying the weight of decades of careful planning. "For the first time in its history, we have the opportunity for true cooperation between species. Humanity will continue to serve as guardians and mediators, but now we can work together openly, instead of from the shadows." Admiral Velthor had spent the past few weeks reading reports from across the galaxy, learning about the extent of human influence on galactic civilization. The prevention of the Andromedan War 20 years ago had been accomplished by human diplomats working behind the scenes. The breakthrough in quantum communication that had connected distant civilizations had come from human research shared anonymously with alien scientists. Even the trade agreements that had brought prosperity to dozens of worlds had been quietly negotiated by human representatives, who had never revealed their true identity. But what if some species refused to cooperate with this new arrangement? He asked. What if they reject human guidance and try to return to the old ways of competition and conflict? On Earth, Dr. Jiho Kim sat in his laboratory, surrounded by screens showing real-time data from across the galaxy. The same man who had watched the first alien ships arrive months ago now monitored the reactions of hundreds of different civilizations as they learned the truth about humanity's role in their development. "They will not refuse," he said, with quiet confidence. "We have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. Every species, every civilization, every potential conflict that might arise has been studied and analyzed. We understand their needs, their fears, their hopes, and their capabilities better than they understand themselves." The doctor gestured toward one of his screens, which showed a detailed analysis of the political situation in the Vega system. The Vegan Council is currently debating whether to accept human mediation in their border dispute with the Centauri Alliance. They do not yet realize that 3 of their most trusted advisors have been human agents for the past 8 years, or that the proposed solution they are considering was developed by our diplomatic corps specifically for this situation. Captain Ko nodded as she listened to the conversation. "The new order is not being imposed through force or intimidation. It is being invited because every species will quickly realize that cooperation with humanity offers them more benefits than any alternative." Admiral Velthor was beginning to understand the true scope of human planning. This was not a sudden revelation that had caught humanity unprepared. Every aspect of the disclosure had been carefully calculated and timed to produce the maximum benefit for all species involved. "You have been manipulating galactic civilization for over a century," he said, though his tone held no accusation. "How do we know you will not continue to manipulate us in ways we cannot detect?" Dr. Kim smiled as he reviewed the latest reports from his research teams. "Because manipulation is no longer necessary. We have spent decades learning how to guide species toward their own best interests without forcing them to make choices they do not want to make. The new galactic order will succeed because every species will choose to participate willingly." Massive human fleets that had revealed themselves throughout the galaxy were not taking aggressive positions or making threatening gestures. Instead, they were offering assistance with exploration, research, and development projects that would benefit entire civilizations. The message was clear. Humanity's supremacy was not built on military might or economic domination, but on an understanding of galactic civilization so complete that resistance was not just futile, but unnecessary. As the weeks passed, after species formally requested to join the new Galactic Alliance, they came not as conquered subjects, but as willing partners who recognized that cooperation with humanity offered them opportunities they could never achieve alone. The galaxy had found its guardians, and those guardians had been watching, waiting, and preparing for this moment for longer than any alien civilization had imagined possible. The age of competition and conflict was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation and shared growth that would carry intelligent life to heights never before imagined. The transformation was complete, and the future belonged to all species working together under the quiet guidance of humanity.